Today, welcome to continuing lecture series called Medicine and Morals. And I want you to remember that because the title is very important. It's not really a medical class, or it is a medical morals class. It's the morality of medicine, things that we ought to do. Tonight we talk about an issue that's very painful. It's mental illness. Now, unfortunately, for centuries in the past, people that suffered from mental illness were not treated very well. I don't have to tell you that in the Middle Ages, what was done to them, they were incarcerated, they were exorcised, they were whipped, they were just beaten, they were made fun of. I mean, it was almost in a religious sense, these people were accused of being the devil. I mean, it was very, very horrible, very horrible. More recently, we become more compassionate and more understanding. I mean, years ago, we opened up asylums for them, and we put these people in asylums, and we cared for them and nurtured them and tried to. And then came a point in time when we over-medicated them. We put them in and we thought, you know what, we medicated them, we cut out parts of their brains, we did this, we tried that, so we then overextended ourselves to them, and it's been a tough road for people with mental illness. It really has, because as much as we've come in advancement of medical science, the brain is still one of those organs that eludes us. We don't know much about what's going on there. As much as we do know, there's still much more to learn. Today, we are going to discuss the morality of how to deal with people with mental illness. We're not going to discuss the various issues of mental illness, what constitute mental illness, although we'll talk a little bit apart of halakha's view on that. But generally how we as a society, as a Jewish people, and halakha as Jewish law deals with mental illness, what we have to do to help these people. Mental illness comes in a number of forms. You have some disorders that are very far-reaching, and pervasive, and the person could barely functions as a member of society. It's these people many times are hospitalized or put away. Or you have other disorders that are more localized and may only affect a specific part of a human's behavior. OCD. Keep washing their hands. They could function, but there's something that's wrong on that one particular part of them. Some orders flare up during different intervals. They come and go, Others are more chronic and constant. So it's a whole variety of mental illness. Now, we talked about in the beginning, the first class of this series, the responsibility of Jewish people to seek out medical help. There's no mitzvah to sit at home and to think to yourself, hey, you know what? I'm going to get better by myself. I'm going to daven until this goes away. Generally, it doesn't go away. If something is wrong, it's best to take care of it early on. The same thing is true about this. Now, here's where the problem becomes, because it's stigmatized. See, people are ashamed. You have a family member, someone breaks his legs. Is anybody ever ashamed to say, I have a cousin who broke his leg? No. My father-in-law had back problems. No one's ever ashamed to say that. But ever say to somebody, hey, you know what? Our cousin was institutionalized. You're ashamed. And psychiatry, what's psychiatry? It's Baba Mises. You ask a lot of people, psychiatrists, Baba Mises, what do they know? They don't know anything. Freud, a faker. He doesn't know anything. It's not true. Judaism respects psychiatrists, in the medical field, as much as they respect cardiologists, surgeons, and pediatricians. And it's no sin, or I should say, it's no mitzvah to sit home and not get help, even with mental illness. Even with mental illness, you have to seek help. You have to seek help. People, again, as I said before, people are ashamed. Many studies have shown that people would rather lie to their employer. If, God forbid, they were somehow hospitalized for depression or some other mental issue, most people would lie to their employers. They would say that they actually went to prison. They would rather say that they went to prison than that they actually went into a mental institution or, hospitalized because of mental issue. There still has that unbelievable stigma. And I know in our world for sure, in a Hasidic world and the religious Jewish world where everything is tight-knit and very close, it took a long time to penetrate. It took a very, very long time for people to come to the realization that a child with special needs is a special child, not a child to be put away. We used to hide them. Why? Because God forbid, what's going to happen? What's a shidduch for our other children? If people know that we have a child with Down syndrome or we have a child that has some other mental illness to them, no one's going to marry us because it spreads, right? It took a long, very, very, very long time in our community to come to the realization that these are very special children and special neshamas, special souls that were given to people who are special, and we have to embrace them. I can't tell you the number of Down syndrome children that were given away by Hasidic families, literally given away, left in the hospital because the parents were embarrassed. There was something wrong with us. They wouldn't do that if the child had a broken arm or if the child had something wrong with an eye, but mentally. As a matter of fact, if you want to go on in society, they will tell you a lot of things. People feel that depression, if you take a survey, not of doctors obviously, just lay people, and ask them, why do you think people are depressed? Because they're weak. But 50% of Americans think that you could get over depression by just toughening up. Come on! You're letting yourself go. Get up! Be tough! 60% of Americans believe that depression is caused because we expect too much out of life. 60% of Americans believe that depression is around because we expect too much out of life. So if you lower your expectations, you'll be okay. That's all you have to do. Just snap out of it. People would rather live next to a convict than next to children that are special needs. And children with special needs, 20% of Americans do not want mentally challenged children in the classroom with their children. These are things that takes a long, long time for us to get over these things. It takes a long time. So Judaism comes along and says, what are you kidding me? Someone that is in this state, and we're going to go through a series of number of different mental illnesses vis-a-vis from the Talmud, you have to have pity on these people. These are people. They're real, and these issues are real. You can't just cast them aside. Well, this is B'Tselem Elokim Baraisam. These people were created in the same form as God in heaven. The fact that they can't function in society, the fact that they're not like you and me, it's very sad. We have a whole school in New York called OHEL. It's a huge school for special needs children, and A.B. Rottenberg is one of the foremost Jewish songwriters of today. He wrote a beautiful song about them. They do a fundraiser every year, and the name of the song is "You Are Just Like Me." And the song is sung from the perspective of one of these special needs children. And he writes that when I walk in the street, why don't you look at me? Why do you turn away from me? Why are you afraid of me? Why are ashamed of me? I'm like you. He says, what, I don't see the rainbow? You may know that this song is very emotional. The rainbow is a different color for me, or a beautiful sunset is a different color for me. I'm just like you. That's the name of the song. I'm just like you. It takes a long time to overcome this. In the Talmud, the term for mental illness is called a shaita. The person is a shaita. The derivative of this word is deviation. From sota. Sota and shaita come from the same derivation. It means deviation. He deviates from normality. Everybody is normal. This guy is different. We're not here to really discuss all the different levels of shaita in the Talmud, but let's just run through three, just to give you an idea of how advanced they were in that time. There is what's called a shaita gomer. Someone that is chronic, schizophrenic, patient whose prognosis remains poor, and whose baseline functioning is very little. He can't, this is a shaita gomer. He can't function. Okay. There is a different type of a shaita who's called itim cholim, itim shaita. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. He comes in and out. The cycles in and out of psychosis. We know people like that. Sometimes you sit with them, and today we'll probably call these people manic depressives, bipolar. Sometimes you look at them and they're tremendously creative, and then there's times you can't talk to them. It's such a depression, you can't talk to them. So in Talmud there was this kind of a case, because you have to know, because we're going to see vis-a-vis how they fit into society. Then there's a shaita l'davar echad. A shaita l'davar echad. He's insane in only one domain. And he gives an example here. For example, he may be delusional, but it may be delusional only for some things, like he's being poisoned. The guy thinks continuously he's being poisoned. Well, as long as he doesn't need anything, he's normal. As long as he doesn't need anything. The moment he sits down to a meal, that's crazy. Another case could be he's being deceived. He's paranoid. Every deal he thinks people are stealing from him. So as long as he's not thinking about his goods, he's okay. A hypochondriac. He thinks he's sick the whole time. As long as he's not thinking about his well-being, he could function in society. So here is what they call a shaita l'davar echad. Now every one of these three categories is going to be looked differently in halacha. Can we trust them for testimony? Well, let me ask you the first case, shaita gomer. Guy's completely baseline very poor. Can he be trusted for testimony? No. If he saw a murder, can you force him to come to court and give testimony? Would you trust him? No. The last case, a shaita l'davar echad. If someone is insane only for one thing, he feels he's in one domain. Can you trust him? Yeah, probably. As long as it doesn't deal with giving a 4-star rating to a restaurant, you could probably trust him. As the guy will say, I went into Kosher Delight, they tried to poison me. What about Moshe's Burger? Tried to poison me. And any restaurant in New York didn't try to, no, I'll try to poison me. Okay, so then the thing is testimony we could throw out. But anything else, you probably could trust them. All right, but all of these people suffer from what we call basically mental illness. There's something wrong with them. Now what Judaism, again, and I reiterate what we started off in the beginning of the class to say, that it is a chayiv, it is a responsibility of whoever takes care of these people or these people themselves to seek out medical help. There's no such thing. It's not a joke here. You know what? This is serious, and you have to go and you have to seek out medical help and try to get better, whatever better means in this particular case. But really, what we're really dealing about here this evening is how do we, as the Jewish people, because this is where the morals comes in, how do we as a Jewish people deal with these people? What is our responsibility vis-a-vis them? God forbid, they may be a member of your family, they may be a member of your family, they may be a member of the community, they may be a member of the city, whatever it is, there's some kind of responsibility that falls on us. And what do we do with them? So the first thing we deal with is what we call stewardship. These people, many of them are like children. It's the capacity of a 5, a 4, or 6-year-old child. They need stewardship. They need someone that's going to oversee their affairs. That's the number one thing. You can't allow these people to, even if they're adults, to go out into the world and fend for themselves. You need someone to oversee their affairs. It's a mitzvah, it's a chayiv. It's a responsibility and an obligation of the community to set aside people who are going to involve themselves in these people's lives. Now, depending upon the severity of the illness, that's as much as effort you're going to have to put in. Someone that's a shaita gomer, someone that's a complete schizophrenic and he can hardly function, in society, you can have almost total stewardship over him. Someone that's a shaita, sometimes in, sometimes out, so you need some less supervision. The third category, where he's a shaita l'davar echad, He's insane for one domain, so you need less stewardship, but still. Now it starts with a very basic premise, that we human beings, Homo sapiens, knowing man, we are people that what differentiates us from the rest of the world, from the rest of the universe? Chachma. Wisdom. To be able to make a decision. Right? And he starts off today by saying, let's start from the very basic premise. Page 156 in your books, text number 1. This is where the author starts off. You have graciously bestowed knowledge upon humans and teach mortals understanding. Graciously bestow upon us your wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So what makes us a human, separates us from animals and plants and rocks? The wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Blessed are you who graciously bestows knowledge. We thank every day that Baruch Hashem we could get up and make this bracha. God forbid we have a traumatic accident. People become injured, brain damage. The individual is even unable to master the most basic cognitive tasks anymore. It's out. It's finished. Or you're born with it. Some people have severe mental illness. And you lose touch with reality. They break down. I had a friend that was a brilliant guy in my class. Yeah, what do you know when you're 11, 12 years old, 14, 15 years old? You don't know anything. This guy was a brilliant guy, and one day he disappears. He's gone. And walking down the street, his mother encounters me, and she says to me, "Can I ask you a favor, please, Abba?" I said, "Sure." I said, "Where is your son?" He's in the hospital. Hospital. Would you visit him? 14, 15, that's not really where you want to hang out, in the hospital. I said, listen, this guy's sick. I'm going to say, no, I'm not cruel. I'll get a few of my friends to go with. Where is he? 4 East. 4 East in Montreal is, I'm sure, every hospital in every city has its own wing. 4 East is, for us, was the mental cases. That's what we used to call them. 4 East. Okay, so it wasn't pleasant. I got a few of my friends. We went up to see him in 4 East. You had to get a key, and they had to let you in with like whoever heard of such a thing. It was like a prison up there. And when I looked at this guy, this was a kid that I grew up with. This was the first time that we had encountered someone that suffered a massive nervous breakdown. I mean, eventually he died. Not at 14, 15, but he suffered for 20 years. 20 years he was in and out of the hospital, could never shake it. And we thought at that time, shake it, what's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? Get out of here. You don't belong here, you belong with us, playing ball, going to school, doing the things we always do. Could never shake it. 30 years, about 20 years probably, he stuck around and he died. He eventually died. And I remember thinking at that time exactly what it's talking about over here, that the biggest problem with that these people encounter, either the ones who have a traumatic experience or, an accident, is that people shy away from them. That's how we treat these people. People that are mentally incapacitated, we don't want to go near them. The others, that's you don't want to hang around them. They're crazy, aren't they? That's what we say about them. He's crazy. Don't hang around him. Don't talk to him. It may be contagious. Contagious. Nervous breakdown is not contagious. But becoming Holocaust parents, you could imagine. how tolerant they were of mental illness. Right? They're very, very tolerant, Holocaust survivors. So don't go near him. You could catch it. What can you catch, ma? You don't catch a nervous breakdown. It just doesn't happen that way. No, don't go. Go, stay away from him. Okay? They're mocked, they're harassed. I mean, this is over and over again. I've mentioned to you before, the beginning of the class. The biggest problem is the lack of will. Someone's depressed. You're depressed. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Suck it up! Right? Come on, get out there. Just walk it off. Walk it off. Okay? Here it says, nearly 30% believe that a child should be placed in an alternative setting as soon as he or she exhibits a mental illness in school. 30% of parents believe that as soon as a child exhibits any type of mental illness in school, take him out. I don't want my kid to come near there. This is the biggest problem that these people face, is that how society views them. So not only are you suffering with a mental illness, but you're not getting the compassion of the rest of society you would if you had cancer. Oh, what happens if someone gets cancer? What happens? Everybody in the whole community does what for them? Rallies around, right? Oh, what can we do for you? What can we do for you? Can we make supper for you? Can we do for you? Oh, someone has depression. What do people do? Stop calling. I don't want to deal with you. The first thing is, it's a sin to do that. It's an avera to do that. Literally an avera. I mean, it's hurtful, it's mean. Because why? Because we don't understand it. See, cancer we understand, but mental illness we don't understand. Why would God make people like this? Forget about a tragic accident, but someone that's so born with a mental illness that debilitates them. Why would God create such a person? It eats us up to see what purpose does this guy serve in life? The whole purpose of living is what? To think, to make decisions, to make a family. And here's Gornish McGornished. I didn't ask this question. King David asked this question. And we go to text number 2. David asks this question: God, everything you made in your universe is beautiful, and wisdom the most beautiful of all, except for madness. What benefit can there be in a person being mad? Now, when you read this, you could start seeing how attitudes develop. You see what he says here? He says madness is another. It's a problem. It's different. A mad person walks in the marketplace and tears his clothes while children mock him and chase him and people jeer at him. This is beautiful for you. This is what he asks God. This is something to be proud of, that you created this guy. B'Tselem Elokim, and this is in your image? Why did you do this for? Now, that kind of an attitude that King David had could be interpreted 2 different ways here. One is he's asking God, compassion. Why you have to have compassion on the guy? Or you could read into this the same old attitude. The man's mad. He's outside. Can you imagine saying that to a child? A child, unfortunately, is running around in the shul. He's not well. A kid who could be behaved well, you expect more from. A child that's not well, would you embarrass the child? Call it mad, crazy? You would do that to a child? No, you wouldn't do that to a child. In the olden days, look what they did to people that were different. They ran around, they chased them, they embarrassed them. King David couldn't understand why this is happening. Why you would do this. All the other illnesses, we could ask a question, why is there illness in general? But this is especially cruel illness. Because it takes away, someone that's sick, cancer, someone has a heart disease, someone has their kidneys failing. It's still in the capacity of a person. You're out of the capacity of even menschlichkeit. You're not even a mensch anymore. I don't know what you are. Torah says be careful. Be careful about these people. Because the way you're going to treat them is the way Hashem is going to look at you. And you see in text number 3a, the warning that Hashem says, you should not curse a deaf person. Why not curse a deaf person? Well, and a person that hears you should curse. So why does the Torah tell us not to curse a deaf person? Because a deaf person is vulnerable. I'm not going to curse Arnold. You know why? I'm afraid of him. I daven to him every morning. I see him putting on his tefillin. I see that muscle that he has in his arm over there. I'm not going to curse him. You guys a soldier? Are you crazy or something? Some guy is in the back of the shul, can't hear me, I'll curse him. Yeah? It's vulnerable. Right? And in front of a blind person, do not put down a stumbling block. Why not? And in front of a regular person, you could put down a stumbling block. That one's a mitzvah to do that. No. You wouldn't put down a stumbling block in front of a seeing person because they're going to step over the wood. These are vulnerable people. Right? And what does Hashem say to you about vulnerable people? Be careful how you treat them. And I could extend that by Hashem talks about orphans and widows. Do you know what about an orphan and a widow? If you abuse them or you take advantage of them, you know what the Torah says? They cry out, and Hashem immediately listens to their cry and doesn't wait to pay retribution for them. Because these are people that are vulnerable. So someone that suffers from mental illness certainly falls into this category. That not only should we not curse them and mock them and make fun of them and laugh at them and jeer at them, we have to have extra compassion for these people. One step even further for these people. Because thank God, first of all, Baruch Hashem Chayin Adas, that Hashem has blessed us with health and good wisdom and a strong mind. And now, because we have this, we have the capacity to empathize, to stretch out a hand to them. The verse tells us that the hearing person should not curse the deaf person, and the seeing person should not cause the blind person to trip on this path. This is a metaphor, Abarbanel writes, instructing any powerful person not to oppress those who are weaker, for this is an indication of poor character. Hashem says He's ashamed of you. If this is the way you treat people that are less fortunate than you, that are weaker from you, I'm ashamed of what you are. So here's the Torah clearly telling us of how we, a Jewish community, a Jewish society, has to deal with people that are unfortunately mentally not well. And it doesn't stop there. It does not stop there. It doesn't stop only, okay, you know what, we're not going to curse him. I'm not going to have anything to do with him. Someone that's not well, they're depressed, they're schizophrenic, bipolar, whatever you want to call them, psychotic, I'm not going to have anything to do with them. Let them be, let them be. No. The Bezdin of the city, if you read text number 4, the Bezdin should appoint a guardian for the mentally ill, just as they do for orphan minors, so that others do not loot their belongings. We have to make sure that there's someone in town that is going to overlook the estate of these people. Now, some people don't need this. Some people suffer from a mild depression. You're not going to need a steward to overlook your belongings. But if you're not well, if you can't take care of yourself, the best court has a mandate to appoint a guardianship over your things. Now, just like orphan children, someone has to take care. Why? Because when it comes to the way the Torah views these people, is that if I damage you, thank God everybody here in the class is well and healthy. If I go out and damage you, I am responsible to pay for 5 separate parts of the damage. 5 different damages I have to pay for you. What are those? First of all, I got to pay for the damage. I pushed you down in the mud, so I ruined your suit. Okay? I ruined your shoes. I have to pay you for the damage I did to you. I got to pay for your pain. I have to pay for your pain. Now, how do you measure pain? There is a way. I mean, if you look into your formal agreement that you signed with your insurance company, they will tell you, God forbid, you lose an arm, they'll pay you this. You lose a leg, they'll pay you that. There's arbitrary numbers, but how do you measure pain? Right? I never knew. We learned in the Gemara for years. We were studying in the Gemara how do you measure pain. So if you get burned, you say to a guy, how much would you want for me to burn you? How much would I want for you to burn me? I don't know. So to me, it always seemed a little ridiculous learning that in the Talmud. I mean, who's it? Till everything comes around. There's a show called The Fear Factor. Remember that a few years ago, The Fear Factor? Anybody familiar with that show? For $50,000, they got you to do the most incredibly dumb things. Eating the eyes of cows, this, eating that, swallowing crickets, eating this. But they also made you walk over this. Dangerous stuff. Dangerous stuff. Until that time, I never figured that people would do it for $50,000. But I see that is. So if I took a hot piece of lead and I say, how much are you willing for me to burn you? There's a price. $5,000? Anybody here for $5,000? No way, $10,000, but there's a price somewhere, and that's how they would figure out pain. How much would it be? $10 if I smacked you, $15 for a punch, $20 for a kick in the, in the acharayim, call it. The acharayim is the other side. I don't want to. It's being taped. So I don't want to go out there. Okay? Medical expenses. See, the Gemara already knew about HMOs and PPOs. You had to pay for medical expenses. That's the way it worked. Loss of income. Right? You're not working, so you have to pay for that. And embarrassment. That's a new one. Embarrassment. I mean, I go along and I take you and I push you down in the middle of the street into a puddle. You're embarrassed. You have to get up now. You're dirty. You're wet. This. So they had to figure out how much is it going to cost for being embarrassed in public. It all depends who pushed you, who was pushed. You know. So there's a place, but not for people that are mentally ill. For people that are mentally ill, for a shaita, for those that came late, you could pick it up. The word for someone that is mentally ill in the Talmud was called a shaita. If a shaita does this to you, he owes you nothing. Zero. He's exempt from paying any compensation. Why? Why? Doesn't know any better. Right? Doesn't know any better. So if a shaita hits you, if you get into a fight with a shaita, if you're dumb enough to get into a fight with someone that's mentally unstable and he beats you up, you know what you deserve? Nothing. But on the flip side, if you injure them, you pay. You're going to pay all 5 parts that we talked about before. So regarding people suffering from insanity, one who harms them is obligated to pay compensation, whereas they are exempt for the damage they cause to others. So, all of this tells us that in a society where people suffer from this, and Loyalena, we know that Jews are not exempt from suffering from mental illness, we must, as a people, establish a stewardship over these people. A guardian, an apotropos, a manager. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is it a good thing that we establish, put someone a stewardship over these kind of people? Are you sure? Think about this. Think before you shake your head. Think. Is it always good to have a guardian over you? Is it always good to have a guardian? There's problems with a guardian, right? What's problems with a guardian? You lose your independence, right? You lose your independence, right? This is mostly a key when we talk about senior citizens. Your senior citizen want to take away their license. You know what a senior citizen says if you want to take away their license? Give me my license or give me death. Right? I mean, a lot of senior citizens will go crazy if they think about losing their license, putting them in a nursing home. Go ahead, it's not good for us, but for them it's good, right? Establishing a stewardship over someone that's mentally ill, there is drawbacks to it because he loses some type of his independence. He has now a guardian that's going to tell him to do A, going to tell him to do it. Now we may, of course, say the other side, the factor in that, you know what, it does so much better for the person, it protects him and it guides him and it helps him, outweighs this loss of independence. But everything has, every rose has its thorn. I mean, every good solution that we come up with, there's always going to be a flip side to it. So making laws to seek to protect the mentally ill, to create some also disadvantages for them. Now the guy wants to go somewhere, you can't go on the trip, it's too dangerous for you. No, he feels bad. Now not all mentally ill people are completely comatose. There are people with feelings. There are people, even if it's a 6-year-old, still has feelings. I mean, most of us here in the room, I believe most of us have children. A 6-year-old doesn't have feelings. Sure, they have feelings, right? And then, I have now a 6-year-old grandson, Baruch Hashem, he's healthy, but when he wants something, he lets it be known, right? He's stubborn and these. So even people that with a 6-year-old mental capacity still have feelings, and if they said no to them, they feel bad. So the loss of they have this idea is a double-edged sword, stewardship. But overall, when properly administered, so you can't take advantage of these people. Because we know the problems here in California about taking advantage of senior citizens, their guardianship is unbelievable what goes on over here. When properly applied, these laws reflect the compassion that Judaism accords to people who are mentally ill. When it's done properly with kindness, and well-intentioned, and remember that word, well-intentioned, this really shows how much we care about these people. We love you, therefore we're going to do this for you. And we're going to show you that we love you because all of our decisions that we're going to make for you are only going to be for your benefit, not for our benefit. Right? If someone is not betrupus, if someone is a guardian over orphans' children's money, there's certain rules and regulations where he can invest that money. He can only invest it, if it's a gain, the gain is for the orphans. If there's a loss, he sustains the loss. Now, we don't want any hanky-panky, they take the orphans' money and just blow it. No. Same thing is true about someone that's mentally disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. You have to put yourself now, we're going to be asked to stand in those shoes of a steward. You've now been appointed a guardian over people that cannot make decisions themselves. And sometimes decisions are very hard. Remember when we talked about in the first class about donating a kidney or donating a heart, all of these things, heart-rendering decisions. That's for somebody that has the capacity to do it himself. And what did we say then? Is there an obligation to give a kidney? No. It's a nice mitzvah if you want to do it. It's nice, but is there an obligation, a chayiv that falls on your shoulders to give a kidney? No. No one says that. None of the poskim say that. You want to? Go right ahead. That's fine. It's beautiful. We'll give you a plaque. We'll do everything. We'll show how nice you are and how great you are and all of those things. But under no circumstances is there a chayiv. Under no circumstances is there an absolute obligation. Now, what happens? Throw in the wrench. Throw in now the idea. What happens if the giver is of diminished mental capacity? What happens now? And he wants to give. What do? You're the guardian. You're the guardian. We're going to have one of the cases. We're going to do a couple of case studies here this evening. These are horrible cases for you to be stuck. But this shows. So we start off with a very basic premise. Text 6a. Very basic premise. Zachen la'adam shalai b'fanav ve'ein chavin la'adam shalai b'fanav. Meaning, we may act to bring benefit to a person who is absent. We are not permitted to make decisions that are disadvantageous to a person who is absent. Meaning, what do I mean by that? Let's just say, I'm at an event. I'm an event, okay? And I just happen to know that Arnold, let's say, is a stamp collector. And I see a stamp that I know that Arnold wants. I may buy the stamp for him. Because I know, Zachan Adam Shaloi Lefanav. I'll take possession of the stamp even when he's not there. And I say, this is for Arnold. Why? Because it's his advantage. But can I say, I don't know, is he a stamp collector, not a stamp collector, but who cares? I'm going to buy it for him anyways. He may hate stamps. That I can't do. I can't put a disadvantage on him if he's not present. That I can't do. But to benefit him, I could do it. Let's, for example, Dr. Weiner owns 3 fields around my property. Right? The 4th field now becomes open. The owner left. Dr. Weiner is traveling. I may go and secure the field for Dr. Weiner, knowing well that he would like to have all these properties around him owned by him. I don't have to ask his permission. Zachin Adam Shaloi Lefonav. I may bring an advantage to the person even if he's not available. But a disadvantage I may not do. Now, why is this important? Because this is going to be the driving idea when we come to sit as an apitropos. When I am a guardian, I am a steward over someone's well-being, their livelihood, their life, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to be driven by this thing, by this thought. Whatever is good for him, I may do. Not good for him, I may not do. And this is going to be, it's going to walk a very fine line over here, as we're going to see. The steward has to remember this, you are a steward. The steward must remember that he may only act to bring benefit to the person under his charge. He has no right to make a decision on behalf of a mentally ill person that did not directly benefit that person. Okay? That means here, you want to give a kidney. Does it have to benefit you? No. If I want to give a kidney to someone I don't know, whose business is it? Nobody's. I make that decision, I want to do it. not here. If you're going to make a decision for someone that you're caring for, this person who is mentally ill, and you're caring for them, every decision is going to be only guarded by this very principle. And let's take a look at the case study. It's a very interesting case study. Now it's long, but we'll run through it quickly. Tommy Strunk was 28 years old in 1969 and dying of fatal kidney disease. Only a transplant could save his life. Doctors considered the possibility of using a kidney from a cadaver if and when one became available, or one from a live donor if a donor could be found. His mother, father, and a number of relatives were tested. Because of the incompatibility of blood type or tissue, none were medically acceptable as live donors. His brother, Jerry Strunk, was the only member of his extended family who was found to be having an acceptable organ match. Mazel tov. So now Tommy's in luck because Jerry has a kidney that he can use. So what's the problem? But Jerry, though he idolized Tommy. Now, why did he write that for? You're going to see. Why does he? What do we care if he idolized him or not? Okay? But that's important. Jerry, though he idolized Tommy, was confined to a state mental hospital. His mental age has been assigned at approximately 6 years old. Even if he had fully understood the crisis, Jerry was not mentally competent to authorize surgery on himself. Jerry's mother went to court to get permission, and the surgery was approved. She said, look, my son wants to do it. He could do it. He's healthy. And the court said yes. But Jerry's guardian, I guess a state-appointed guardian, attempted to overturn the decision, arguing that the surgery was not in Jerry's best interest. Well, you're putting a guy through, we talked about this before, about donating a kidney. Is there no risk? There's some risk. Well, what's his benefit? What's benefit to him? Nothing. Nothing.
It would benefit him to keep his brother alive.
Okay, wait. Oh, okay. All right. The question came before the Court of Appeals was whether the court could grant the request of Jerry's mother to permit a kidney to be removed from an incompetent ward of the state in order to save his brother. Now, don't look further. Okay, don't look further what it says. Don't cheat. Okay? Now you're now in the Court of Appeals. Here comes the Court of Appeals. We're arguing for you. On one hand is Jerry's mother and family that say Jerry should be able to do it. We know that he wants to do it and he's agreed to do it, but he's 6 years old, his mental capacity of 6 years old. The state says no. The state says he should not do it. No benefit to him. It's going to hurt him. It could hurt him. It could be fatal. He could die. Why? Listen, we're sorry, Tommy. Life is also a roll of the dice sometimes. And unfortunately, the only guy that could give you a kidney is not able to give you a kidney.
6 years old is old enough to know that you're doing something.
He does, yes, but not old enough to make your own decisions. We would not rely on a 6-year-old to make his own decision. He may say one way or another. He may agree or disagree one way, but certainly not 6 years old is not old enough. No court is going to allow a 6-year-old to make a decision like this, right? So think. Go ahead, Lee.
If his mental health is helped by his brother because of that close relationship, it does give him.
So that would be one argument. That's one argument that you would argue. If you were arguing on the side of the family, you would say that it helps him. So what do you think? Do we let him go through the surgery or not let him go through the surgery? Now, and I want you to look at the next line at the bottom because you're going to see what the majority voted. Yes or no?
No.
Bob?
The risk is very, very low for him to donate a kidney. It really is.
Okay, that's an important factor. That is an important factor. Because remember what we said. Our guiding principle is the decision has to be made for his benefit. Right, for his benefit. Meaning that for his benefit is, if we break it down really, there's two criteria that we're going to see. Number one is he has to get something out of it personally. If he gets nothing out of it, zero out of it, he can't do it. And number two, pain. Right? If I told him, you know what, look, Tommy, Jerry, you're going to do it, but it's going to hurt like heck to do it. It's really, really good. And now he may still say, I don't care. I want to do it. That factors into it. Now what Dr. Weiner brought up is that the risk is low. If the risk was high, that would be a different. So now we have to make a decision. Think about the arguments pro, think about the arguments against. since we don't have all day here, we're not going to sit for 7 days pondering this. We'll take a quick result. Who thinks the surgery, they would approve the surgery? Who would approve it?
Is this our decision or the court's decision?
No, you are the court.
Oh,
You're the court. Who approves it? Okay. Who would not approve it? Okay. The court approved it. The court approved it. The court approved it on basically a number of different issues. Number one, and probably the most overriding, is what Dr. Weiner and Lee both put together. That, you know what, and Andre also said it, you know what, that there is a benefit for him. Now let's see. The majority opinion made the following arguments in support of allowing the transplant. This is what the majority said. Number one, Tom's best chance for survival was receiving a kidney from his brother. We took that into consideration. There's nobody else. See, somebody else? Okay, we might think. There's nobody else. The doctors all agreed this is his best chance. Number two is Dr. Weiner's statement. The risk to Jerry as a donor were relatively slight. Meaning, it doesn't say there was no risk involved. You're going to go under the knife. You never know. Machines, we've heard of cases where, you go under anesthesia, the machine breaks, the guy falls asleep. Who knows what could happen? So there's no risk. There's slight risk. There's slight risk involved. Jerry would be harmed by Tom's death because his disability, despite his disability, Jerry showed emotional reaction and he frequently asked about Tom's visits. And I said before, he adored Tom. That means that there was something, there was a value added, something here that we needed to do to save Tom's life. Okay? While Jerry might not understand the details of Tom's kidney failure, Jerry was aware that he played a role in the relief of the current tension about Tom's health. What Tim said. See, he's 6 years old. He can't make a decision, but he knows something is happening. Right? Something is going on. Were Tom to die, Jerry would be burdened with guilt. So here we have another component here. That not only is he benefiting from it, if we withhold it, and then the parents come and say, we're sorry to tell you that your brother died, and he knew that somehow he was involved in this, okay? That was the majority ruled, okay? The dissenting arguments were the following. While parents may become martyrs themselves, right? You say, hey, you know what? I want to give you a kidney. It does not follow that they are free, even in identical circumstances, to make martyrs of their children before they reach the age of legal discretion, and can make the choice for themselves. Now, would this be different? You see, here we're talking about a guy, Jerry, who's an adult. Would it be different if it was an actual 6-year-old kid?
Oh, yeah.
Will make a big difference, right? If this was a 6-year-old kid, here's an adult. Guy's grown. The only problem is he's ill, mentally ill. But if he was a 6-year-old kid, we wouldn't be so flippant to put him under the knife, right? We wouldn't, even though he may be the only match.
The principle's the same. If you're going to do it for somebody who's mentally, you have to say you may be correct. You may be absolutely correct. But I think the decision would be much tougher. You may be absolutely correct. You could argue in court, hey, 6-year-old mental capacity, 6-year-old kid, relatively low. But I think the parents would think twice about a 6-year-old kid versus a 36-year-old man. That's only my... They would think twice. Because he's mentally impaired, and that's
what he's arguing here. That's why the dissenting arguments are arguing like you. Look, hey, you wouldn't do it for a 6-year-old, so you can't do it for a 36-year-old. That's what the dissenting arguments were made, the judges. So he said you couldn't do it, you wouldn't do it, right? Or you shouldn't do it, or you wouldn't do it, or you couldn't do it for a kid, right? To make martyrs of their children. Meaning, I'm going to tell you, kid, you're 6 years old, I'm putting you under the knife before they reach the legal age discretion and can make choice for themselves. The ability to understand and consent is a prerequisite. They argue to do that, you have to be able to make the decision. You, not your parents. Even if you're 36, but number two, there's no guarantee that the transplant would save Tom's life. He could reject it. The body frequently rejects transplanted organs, so there's no guarantee. Number three, while the surgery would...
But the statistics are in favor.
Are in favor. Right, yeah.
Very strong.
Very strong that now, certainly now, I mean, we've benefited. But again, he's saying no 100% guaranteed, they would argue. While the surgery would not greatly endanger Jerry's life, it does cause some risk. That we agreed to that, right? It does cause some risk. The permission of the court was based on the fact that there would be psychological benefits to the ward. That's the key, right? There's psychological benefits, as we talked about. What was that? What was that statement from this Talmud? What did we say before? Oh, you may if you may bring benefit to a person even if he's not there, right? So if you took that principle and brought it to this case, what's the benefit for him? For Jerry? Tom's around. Right? Oh, okay. So the permission of the court was based on the fact that there would be psychological benefit to the ward. However, the ward had the mentality of a 6-year-old child. It is common knowledge, beyond dispute, that the loss of a close relative of a 6-year-old child is not of major impact.
I disagree with that. That is so wrong. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we know that now. This was all taking place in 1969. So
Yeah, we know. Okay, we know 69. That way back in the Stone Ages. 69 is the Stone Ages. What did they know back in 69? They didn't know anything in 69. It was Woodstock. They were all stoned down in there, right? In 69, they didn't know anything. Opinions concerning psychological trauma are best nebulous. Okay, so the court argued in 69, big deal. The kid's going to suffer. It's not going to make much difference in this thing. Okay, you heard the response to that number 4 argument. Okay, so what this tells you, look, here in this particular case, the majority ruled that he could do it because, number 1, it was a benefit to him. Now, whether you agree or disagree, the principles will remain the same throughout our discussion tonight. That whatever we do for someone that we're the steward, that we are the guardian, we are the manager of their case, we have to be guided by one basic principle. It is the benefit for them. Not would it benefit someone else. It's great that Tom is going to get a kidney, but what's it going to do for Jerry and Jerry alone? That's all that matters for us. And we have taken all of these considerations. Is there going to be pain? What's the risk? What's the benefit? Da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. And then we make a decision based upon that. Now, of course, look, the fact that we here in the room disagree, that half the room said yes and half the room said no, just shows that we're thinking people, and there's going to be cases where we're going to lean one way, there's cases where we're going to lean another way. That's why we have a Beis Hillel, that's why we have a Beis Shammai. There are people that are going to look at this case and they're going to say, hey, no, I want Tom to live like the mother. I don't care, I'll rip Jerry's kidney out if I have to myself. Right? To her, Tom's life was paramount to everybody. The state, which is a little bit more dispassionate, right? It stands aside, may think differently, but that's why we have courts. Go ahead.
This calls back to the first things that we talked about in terms of the transplants, where if you're a live, willing donor, you can do it. And if you're a cadaver, sure, you can grab it, but the person who has the breathing brain dead, you can't touch. And this is the same kind of situation. That is the ultimate mental incapacity. So you could almost apply those same kind of principles that we're applying here to that sort of brain dead but breathing cadaver. Can we salvage the heart? The halakhic principle would say no, you can't.
But why? But why there? Brian, if you extend that argument. So take that argument that you're saying right now and extend it. That we have a brain dead person laying on the table. The doctors are saying, look, we need this guy's heart. The rabbis are standing there like the court saying, you can't touch this guy. You can't do it. It seems very not compassionate on the part of the Torah. But what is the reasoning there? Not because he can make a decision. Because the moment you touch that heart, what happens? He's dead. Now, if we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that he could stay alive without his heart, that say, hey, you know what? Nothing is going to change with this guy. Minimal risk. We're just going to take his heart. Because I know a rabbi that when I was a kid in school, there was a rabbi. They said, if you ever need a heart transplant, ask for this rabbi's heart because it was never used. Okay, he was. All right.
But you can take it, but you can't take a kidney either.
Nothing.
Yeah,
You can't take anything.
He could stay alive and still be.
But no, but you may kill him. See, the risk factor at this guy it would be way too high to touch him, lest you actually kill him. Here again, if those principles that we found in a brain dead person were applied to Jerry, you're absolutely correct. That means if the point was that we had not let's not take a kidney transplant. Let's take a much more experimental thing. Let's say a double lung, whatever. I don't even know what you could do, here, and do some experimental stuff on Jerry. The courts would say no, because I think according to your principles, that would put him at risk. The moment it puts Jerry at risk,
the principle that we're applying to the mentally disabled,
right,
apply to that same brain dead person, which is what's the benefit for that person? You could take that same person because you're acting as their advocate.
Right.
You're acting at a distance, so you don't even have to go to the issue of I might kill him. You could say, what's the benefit?
Nothing.
For her?
No benefit.
No benefit.
There's a risk.
There's a risk.
Right. Yes, that is. And yes.
No risk.
That is true. That is true. That is true. If you're from the descending group of judges, you're absolutely correct, because there's no benefit to him. There's absolutely no benefit to him. No, that you're correct.
And that person is going to have a guardian.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Someone's going to have a
power of attorney. Correct.
That person is going to make the decision.
Oh yes, absolutely. And according to the principles that we laid down, the last 4 principles, there is no benefit to this brain dead person. There's nothing, unless you could prove again that if it's, let's say, a son, his son needs the kidney or the son needs the heart, then you could go back into court and say, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the relationship between these two was so overwhelmingly close that if this man had a chance to speak right now, he would without question not only go to surgery, he would rip out his own heart. Then would the courts feel such a compassion, in order to do that? Again, we would have, these cases are real. I mean, these are cases that come before judges, I'm sure, almost every day. You talk about, and it's only because we've come so far in medical science. 200 years ago, Jerry and Tom are out of luck. Jerry dies because he's mentally ill. They put him away somewhere, and then hopefully he dies. The quicker the better. The parents don't care about him. Tom dies because of kidney failure. It's only because of medical science. And believe me, in halacha, all of these questions are not getting easier. The more medical science advances, the more complex these issues get. Because the risk here, as Dr. Weiner stated again, becomes smaller and smaller. As we perfect it, becomes lower and lower and lower and lower, which means that the basis for doing this becomes much wider. When it was highly risky, you'd say, no. Are you sure you want to do it? Maybe halacha would refrain. But as these become more common, like, I'm just saying, a stent in a heart, or they put when they claim bypass surgery, all of these things. Now you think about bypass surgery. That's today it's become much more common. Bypass surgery, doing all of these things. Yes, it becomes more complex and more issues try to creep in. And I'll give Andrea, and then we'll go to Dr. Weiner. Andrea, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. One thing you didn't bring up was that the mother wanted this.
That's nothing. That's irrelevant.
No. If she was of sound mind and loved both of her children, who would have a better?
But that's irrelevant. We established that day one. We established that day one, in our first lesson. We established the need of the people around you. They want you to do it. Means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. The courts cannot take this into consideration. Of course, a mother's going to want to save the child. Of course, we are only interested in the benefit and the good service that we are going to give to Jerry. What the mother, 1,000 people could sign a petition that we want this to happen. The court has to forget about it. The court cannot take this into consideration because it has no benefit vis-a-vis the patient that we're dealing with right now. We know a mother. We know how the mother feels. We know that the mother is now is in excruciating pain because she has one child here and one child that's dying, and the court says to her, Mrs. Jerry, mother, we feel for you, but it's irrelevant. your feeling is irrelevant. And not because it's cruel, not because the court is cruel, because it has nothing to do with the case, Dr. Weiner.
The person who is brain dead in all likelihood will require some form of artificial support.
Right.
Who is to say that the decision that was made to start how that benefits the person is brain dead? What kind of a life is that? That is an excellent. Okay, unfortunately, that's going to take us far afield. I mean, I want to get into this issue, but I just want to say one point to what Dr. Weiner says, which is extremely relevant today, extremely relevant to every one of us. We have a responsibility now that most of us looking around the room are not anymore teenagers or even early 20s. We have a responsibility to get our papers in order. That when you, God forbid, should ever find yourself in a situation where there's a guardian, that guardian is not going to make the decision for you, but before you are in that position, you write it out in a living will and testament what you want to happen. I encourage everybody to do that, because if you don't, what happens is, you come into the hospital, God forbid, you suffer a heart attack. Your children are going to feel, no, we don't care. We want our father. The doctors are telling you, look, guy's 93 years old. We can't do anything more. We don't care. Hook him up to that machine, that machine, that machine, that machine. Stick him here, there, and everywhere. We don't care. You know what? They'll do it. They'll do it. But then you're in trouble. Then you're stuck, because to pull the plug, then we talked about Terry Schiavo. To pull the plug, no, my friend, because once he's on that breathing tube, you ain't pulling. No, you're not going to be able to pull the plug unless you're like Steve Martin on a Saturday Night Live skit that did that once. He came into the room. The guy was laying. He was dead. He was comatose. He figured he was doing him a favor, so he wrapped the cord around his leg, and he was about to pull the plug when the guy woke up. And he sees the cord around Steve Martin's leg. He says, hey, what are you doing? Were you going to pull the plug? No, what do you mean pull the plug? Then of course he has to start backtracking now. I wasn't going to pull the plug, back and forth. So you don't want to find yourself in that kind of a situation. But let's come back to mental illness rather than end of life issues, because this field is great. Was Tom. Now you want to talk about family dynamics.
My point is that because the other person was mentally ill, do you think that the court was... No. I don't think the court took that into consideration because they were mentally ill. I don't think that's the case. I think that there was a benefit if the court had, if the state had been able to show that there was absolutely no benefit, that this guy had no understanding that his brother was ill, he couldn't care about his brother, he just didn't care, he didn't know, they would have to have a tough time in court to prove why they should go ahead with this. I think the overreaching factor here that made the judges push it to the majority yes was the fact that he received a benefit from it, and because of course also that it was minimal risk. I mean, again, lower and lower. But had he been had he said he doesn't recognize his brother, never knew that he had a brother, what if they found, the parents didn't tell anybody? What if the case would have been the parents never told they had a Jerry? This happened, like I mentioned in the beginning of the class, thousands of times in the past. In the Jewish community, you didn't say anything, you put him in a hospital, shah still, schweig, don't say anything. Then all of a sudden Tom gets sick and the parents remember Jerry, let's go check out Jerry. You might have a different case altogether. Then I don't think the courts would have been so easy into allowing you to make a decision to take Jerry's kidney. But I think that was the overreaching, because again, he brings this case for one reason. Why does the author bring this case? To show you benefit. That's all that really matters. Go ahead, John.
Well, the interesting thing that kind of makes me be a little on both sides of the case is, like you were just saying, if Jerry was dispassionate about his brother and yet still had some altruistic notion to carry it forward, it seems like in a 6-year-old capacity.
No, we wouldn't take that into consideration. No, we would not take that into consideration. If he just wanted to do it, because he would do it for anybody. If you came into Jerry and said, hey Jerry, you know what, there's a person out there that needs your kidney, great, I'm giving it.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Then you see
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
That's beneficial to them.
But that's irrelevant. That we can't do because that level of making a decision, that's why we have a guardian. Because he can make that decision. Because a 6-year-old doesn't understand what the ramifications are. We're going to take your kidney. Great! If it's going to get me a star at my reading test, we'll be out. It's like what was his name with Bill Cosby with the tonsils. They told him, you take out your tonsils, you'll get to eat ice cream and this. And then he said, me first. And then they wheeled in the other guy. He looked dead. They weren't so ready to go. Once they looked so dead. So in this case, the same way, we would not take that into consideration.
Again, I advocate also for the advanced directives more than we really will. But so you're saying that if someone does have advanced directive that is then the court changes the whole mind?
This I don't know. I don't know what the court is going to do. But if you say that I do not want any extra special method to do, if I'm dead, and leave me dead and bury me and have a good day, then they have no choice but to listen to you.
The other way, we say if I'm incapacitated, then you can use parts of me. If you've done that beforehand and then you become incompetent, in nursing homes it's the same thing. You want to do it for grandma who's in the nursing home, that's fine. But the ombudsman will come in and check you to make sure you're competent. If you're not competent, no way.
Okay,
so
I got you.
I don't know how they look at it.
I don't know either, but just make sure you have your papers in order. Just make sure. The next thing is going to be a little bit different here. He says a bone marrow. He writes this, and again he wrote this a while ago. A bone marrow transplant is extremely painful to the donor. It hurts. It hurts him. To the extent that the donor must be put under general anesthesia while the bone marrow is harvested. Now, again, leave this because I think Brian explained to us a couple of weeks back that there's ways to get it without putting him under. Am I correct? But this is a case.
They don't do many bone marrow anymore. They don't harvest the bone marrow much anymore. They give you a shot and then they just put you on this sort of
thing. Okay, but this is prior. This is back in the olden days. Rabbi Auerbach told me that it is permitted to use a child as a donor to save the life of a terminally ill family member so long as the child is mature in understanding and agrees. That means the child understands that, look, you're going to go through a painful procedure, but you're going to save Zadie's life. Let's just say that. The child understands and says, yes, I want to do it. So Rabbi Auerbach said, go ahead and do it. If the child is only an available donor but has not reached the age of mature understanding, that means he's 2 years old. The only one is the kid is 2 years old. Doesn't understand what's going to go on. It is very questionable, he writes. He doesn't say that it's prohibited. But Rabbi Auerbach told him it's a very questionable if the parents have a right to consent on behalf of the child to save a family member by applying the principle. We benefit people in their presence. That is a great benefit for the donor to save another person's life. It's great, right? But because what happens here, what's the difference between this case and the case with Jerry? The pain. The pain is the difference.
Well, wait a minute, there's pain when you give up the kidney too. It's a surgery.
Yeah, but he says here, but over here, the donor, the risks are relatively slight. It's not as painful. I mean, it's painful, but not as painful. He's obviously over here. Is what he's saying, right? This is the difference over here. So if a kid is underage and can make the decision, and there's no benefit over here to him, there's no benefit to the kid, then. But if he has capacity to understand, then he can do it. Okay? So he says normally the principle of Zachan Adam, that you could do something to benefit the person, would dictate that although we may allow a medical procedure, even if it's painful to be performed on a child, we may only do so if the procedure benefits the child. So if he understands that he's going to save your great-grandma's life, do it. Since the child does not benefit from a bone marrow donor, and the procedure causes much pain, again, the procedure causes much pain, he would say it is beneficial. It's forbidden to cause the child to undergo this pain. It's fine. Okay. So we have those two guiding principles that we have to do. Now the next case study that we're going to do is again going to be brought forth in a rabbinical court. Here it's a much more complicated case. Let's go see what happens over here. Remember, the only thing that we have to guide is two things. Benefit and pain. Benefit and pain. If it causes pain to the person, but no benefit, no.
If there's benefit, even if there's pain, yes, sometimes. Now look over here what happened. The Willowbrook State School in Staten Island, New York, housed and cared for children who suffered from severe mental disabilities. At the time, public facilities were considered the best care option for children suffering from a mental disability. Because there were very few state institutions that served this population, the facility was forced to accept more children than were recommended for its size. Hepatitis was a major problem at Willowbrook for patients and staff because of the overcrowding and unsanitary conditions. It is known at that time that the response to infection was milder in younger children, and that once infected with hepatitis, children were protected from getting hepatitis again. Dr. Saul Krugman from the New York University School of Medicine and his co-workers began conducting hepatitis studies at Willowbrook in 1955 and continued for more than 15 years. Krugman was interested in using gamma globulin antibodies taken from the blood hepatitis patients as a way to create immunity in others. Krugman thought that if a child was infected with hepatitis after he or she had been injected with one of these protective antibodies, that means they gave first the medicine. Am I correct in reading this? First they gave the antibody, right? They injected them first with the gamma globulin, right, with the antibodies. Then they would then inject them with hepatitis, right? They would give them hepatitis. What would happen? Only a mild case of hepatitis would result, and the child would have long-lasting protection against future, potentially more serious infections. So they did two stages here, right? They injected him with the antibodies, and then injected him with the hepatitis virus. His goal was to find the best way to protect children from hepatitis. Okay? More than 700 children in Willowbrook were involved in the studies, which fell into two categories. The first used children who were already at Willowbrook. Researchers injected some of them with protective antibodies as the experimental group and did not inject others, the control group. Then they observed the children's degree of immunity to hepatitis. Okay? So some got the antibodies, some didn't get the antibodies, and then we'll see how it works out. In another series of studies intended to further examine the effectiveness of gamma globulin, researchers gave newly admitted children their protective antibodies. So new kids that came in were injected with the antibodies. Then a subset of these children were deliberately infected with a hepatitis virus obtained from 6 children. Okay? So you had new children coming in, they got the antibodies, half of them were then injected with the hepatitis virus. Those who had received protective antibodies but were not deliberately infected served as the controls, meaning that was the outside group. The children in this experiment were housed in a well-equipped and well-staffed facility where they could be given special care and kept away from other types of infections at the institutions. Only children under 10 years old of age were used in the study since they seemed to recover more easily from these infections. As the studies progressed, the researchers noticed differing symptoms caused by different virus samples. They concluded that there were 2 strains of hepatitis, A and B. Those children who were deliberately infected with hepatitis A had a mild reaction, a swollen liver, yellowing of the skin and eyes, and a few days of vomiting and not eating. Mild. Okay? Mild. They found that hepatitis B is more difficult to transmit to others because it is normally spread through the exchange of body fluids, but can lead to long-term chronic infection. Okay? What's done in the name of science, right? What's done in the name of science. So here, this comes now before a court, a bezdin. You're now a bezdin. You're now a parent. They're going to ask you permission. They want to now inject your kid with antibodies and then inject them with hepatitis to be able to see what the reaction is. So this could lead to, God willing, better care, better medicine, more antibodies, how it's going to react, etc., etc., etc. You're the parent. This comes to you before a bezdin. You're not the parent, but you're the bezdin working. And he tells you work with a character. But here the list of ethical arguments for and against enrolling the children in this kind of a study. Now remember, we have a number of different children, but let's take the last case. The last case were newly admitted children that were given both the antibodies and the virus. The antibodies and the virus. From a halachic point of view, if you're a bezdin, do you allow this to happen or not? Do you say yes? Do you say no? Most people, now, okay, the first thing you have to realize in a Bezdin, in any legal system, be dispassionate. Okay? I know that the first thing, when you first read this and you hear about being injected with a virus, what's the first thing that comes up to your mind? They're Nazis. The doctors are literally Nazis. They take a kid and inject him with a hepatitis virus? Who would do this to a kid in America today? These got to be Nazi. I'm looking for Mengele's name. Where's Mengele's name? You know, these things. You have to be dispassionate. Was this a serious study? Yes. It's a serious study. This wasn't done by some crazy guys in a cave somewhere, kidnapping children and doing this. It was a serious study. You know, they took kids, they looked at them, and as a matter of fact, is that the only virus that we inject? What are all the what do you call those things? Inoculation that we give our children. What are they called? Vaccines. What are all the vaccines that we give our children? Aren't they shooting them up with what? With cornflakes? Right? What did they give them? What are those vaccines? Right? They give you the virus, so the virus will always fight, like my teachers say, a virus. What are our virus? Sins, a virus. They shoot you up with a virus. Okay, so some parents will go, but most people today, I know as a parent, my doctor told me, give the kid the inoculation. Remember, they did it, but there's many parents who don't want to do it. Right? They get scared by the news media. You know, God forbid, the autism is caused by this. I'm not even sure of everything else. I know as a kid, I was poked and pagged and plinged forever. Long needles, short needles, booster shots, measles shots, up the shots till you didn't know. On your back, scratches. Remember those scratches on your back? What was that, for TB? BCG, for TB, for BT, ich weiß nicht, for everything. And my mother, you know, sticking with everything. All right, sticking with everything. So here, now you're going to have two arguments over here. Two arguments. Arguments in favor and arguments against. Okay? So let's go through the arguments in favor. I'm going to propose to you an argument in the favor, and then you're going to tell me if I'm crazy or if I'm wrong. Okay? Number one, favor and argument for the children. The children who are coming into Willowbrook would have probably contracted hepatitis anyways. I mean, even the healthy children coming in. So they are not necessarily worse off by being deliberately infected with hepatitis. If you kind of come into a place that has a hepatitis outbreak, I mean, it's not that you're saying, oh, you know what, we're going to a sterile environment. They're anyways going to get hepatitis. So inject them now, and there's going to be some benefits in studying. Valid or not valid argument? No, one doctor says yes, one doctor says no. What does the third doctor say? No, okay. Snaim shosu ptur, okay? What? That's right. All right, but okay.
You're not, one thing that's not being considered.
Okay.
The fact that this was a study, and the study has a design, and there's scientific principles that are behind the design of that study. So if you just take one part of it in isolation, that's not going to be fair.
Okay. We're gonna run down a number, Marvin.
Plus, the study doesn't make it ethical or moral. I can.
No, of course we know that, but in this case, because I know about this.
Oh, you know about the study. Okay. Well, let's just run down here.
It wasn't very well intentioned.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Well, let's run down a few more arguments in favor. Here's my favor. The study was only conducted on children who often had a milder strain of the disease than adults. It means the study was only conducted on children. It means if you can say, wow, come on, they start poking everybody and giving them. Children, in general, had a milder strain of a disease than adults. The children deliberately infected with hepatitis tended to recover quicker than those who contracted the disease naturally, since they had received the gamma globulin vaccination beforehand. So we had given them the antibodies, and the children in the study benefited, because remember, that's a big word. What benefit did it have for the children? From being in a less crowded, more hygienic facility. Because don't forget, this control group was taken over to a different facility, cleaner, nicer, more protective. The knowledge gained from the experiment could help doctors lower the rate of infection in the facility itself. The knowledge gained from the experiment had potential to reduce the severity of hepatitis outbreaks in society at large. meaning that it had a benefit not only for the child itself, but had a benefit for everybody. In fact, this study did indeed prove invaluable in helping doctors understand how hepatitis is spread and how its incidence can be prevented. Those are the arguments in favor. Meaning that the children went through a milder strain, they were in a better environment, it benefited them because they got the antibodies beforehand, it benefited society at large. This was the arguments for the parents allowing them, or Besdin, or courts allowing the children to do it. That was some of the arguments pro. We listen to them, we hear them, make some we feel better about, some we don't feel better about. I know, but again, you have to be dispassionate. You see, when you're in a court of law, you can't be a mother. You can't be a mother. Because a mother will say what? You touch my kid, I'm going to take this ratchet, I'm going to kill you. You put that needle in my kid and with a hepatitis, I'm going to, who knows what I'm going to do? I'm going to stick the needle in you, in your eye, right? The mother will go crazy in there. So you can't be a mother. A judge cannot be a mother. A judge has to be dispassionate, has to listen to the cases back and forth and back and forth. But here as parents, we're going to try to convince you. If I'm a doctor, I'm going to try to convince you, listen, your kid's coming here anyways to Willowbrook. Right? They're coming to Willowbrook. What was the child was what they were of? They suffered from real mental disabilities. So they had a guardian for them. Most parents probably weren't even involved over here. They maybe had a guardian for them. Arguments against. Not everyone in the home got hepatitis. Right? Not everybody got hepatitis. Some did, some didn't. You could have gotten, but not everybody got hepatitis.
You have to define that based on experience. What's the probability of developing?
Oh, that's a good question. He doesn't bring it down here. He doesn't bring down what the percentage was. Was I? Okay? But again, we'll say, look, my kid made this, especially my kid, but my ward, he's going to be lucky, he's not going to get it. Right? The children will deliberately infect with the disease for the purpose of a more effective clinical trial, but not for their own benefit. Okay, you could say that, you know what, for down the line we're going to study and see what the next guy is going to benefit, but you may not have benefit for you right now. Children in a mental health facility, okay, these are getting here, can't fully understand the risks of the study in which they are participating. Okay?
That's why they have a guardian.
Oh, that's so. Okay, so the guardian has to say, look, you know what? If it was a regular, normal 6-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid, you tell the kid, hey, listen, this is going on. The kid says yes. The kid says no. We're going to help you. You're taking a kid like he mentioned before, the brain dead guy. You know, they're not brain dead, but I'm saying, you know, I mean, they don't understand what's going on over here. So it may be not unethical. It may just be feel. You know, the gut reaction is. You're taking people that don't understand what's going on and you're using them as a guinea pig. The competent adult staff in the facility, also exposed to hepatitis, were not asked to volunteer for the study. Now, what does that mean? Listen to this again. The competent adult staff in the facility, also exposed to hepatitis, were not asked to volunteer for the study. So what does that have to do with it? Well, who cares if they were there? Who cares? So I don't understand what this argument against me.
That makes the children getting this. That's what.
Why? Because they
didn't have any say. They didn't.
Oh, I mean, they were not asked to participate in the study. Means that, you know, the adults, because they were only using the children. That's what basically it's saying. An argument against is why, if it's good, why go out? If it's so beneficial, ask the adult staff to also participate. No, they didn't ask them to participate. Only children. Another concern was the means used to affect the children, feeding them infected feces. It says here, but I don't know what that if that's a typo. So now, infected. I don't know what that is. That's what he writes over here. So now the question becomes.
If it's hepatitis A, it's oral fecal. So the way it's usually spread is people don't wash their hands.
Oh, okay. Bathroom, so infected. So that's what he wrote. That's what he wrote.
It's a food spread, and if it's spread in a facility like this with mentally challenged children, their personal hygiene is going to be terrible. It's overcrowded.
So that's what he's saying.
So the kids may be soiling stuff and toys and things go in their mouth.
And that's
how it's getting spread. Unlike the B, which is through serum and blood, much less likely to be spread.
Very good. Thank you.
So that's probably exactly how they, which is pretty distasteful.
Well, very. You would think so. You would think so. Distasteful is the key, is the right term for this. So now we have, there's benefits, here, there's arguments against. Again, here, I think the underlying argument against is a gut feeling. It's not a rational thing, because in every study, no matter what study you're going to do, aren't there going to be some kind of risks? I mean, if you listen to the radio, we need guys between the ages of 18 and 49 who've had history of epilepsy and this and that, but if you're good health and this, please come. To a study, we're going to pay you $45 a day with 2 meals. I mean, even there, something's going to happen. They're going to draw your blood. They're going to look at you. They're going to kick you. I don't know, they're going to hit you over the head with a hammer. I don't know what they're going to do for you, but something they're going to do to you, right? They're going to look at you. So, okay, so an 18 to 49-year-old guy, fine. When you're dealing with a 10-year-old kid whose mental capacity is diminished, our stomachs are telling us, no, how could they do that? Can't you find another way of doing it? Do something else. So, okay, because you have to take that out of consideration. If you're a parent, obviously, if you're a parent, but if you're a guardian or something like that, if you want to be dispassionate, is there a benefit? Back and forth. Let's just take a look here at just text number 8. Text number 8. If the doctors are confident that there is no danger involved in the experiment that is being proposed, okay, then it is permitted to volunteers one body to participate in a clinical trial that will benefit other patients. Again, you know what, we want to do research on epilepsy, please, if you're from the 18 to 49, or, this, please show up at the thing, no problem, we're going to do a few tests on you, draw blood, whatever it is, you eat a certain diet, no problem. The rabbis will say, go for it. And indeed, one is considered to have performed a mitzvah. Good, you know what? Look, you test me, do everything you need. So for me, I may not benefit in a minute, but the next generation may benefit. It's a great mitzvah to do that. However, there are certainly no grounds to suggest that the Torah will consider this an obligation at all. There's no obligation to do this. There's none. You want to do it? You want to benefit society at large? You want to make $45 a day in 2 meals? Go call this number and have a good day. Okay? Why is this? Because there's number one, there's no danger to you. There's no danger to you, and it's beneficial to people. Okay, so it falls into these 2 categories. Now, regarding experimentation on a child or mentally incompetent person, so that's a little bit different. If there is no discomfort or pain to the child, that means, you know what, look, the child is going in, we're doing study in many ways, we want to draw a little more blood. That means, God forbid, there's children in the hospital already. Lo yaleinu, chas v'sholem. Okay, but the child is in the hospital. The doctor comes to the parents and says, look, your child has a rare disease, we want to draw a little bit more blood. Normally we draw a little tube, we want to draw 2 tubes. So at first, as a parent, you see your child, blood is being drawn, that's bad. But if it doesn't hurt the child, that means, the needle is already inside there, the blood is being drawn, they want to draw another tube, there's no problem to check his natural body secretions, whatever it is. Likewise, if doctors are in any case taking blood for medical purposes, it is permissible to take a little extra for the use of a study. If the experiment itself will cause pain to the child, that means no matter what it's going to do, it's going to cause him pain. If the experiment is for the child's benefit in a way that the child will gain directly from the study's results, that means I'm not looking for someone down the line, next generation is going to benefit, but this kid has to get benefit. It would seem, he writes, it would seem that the study may be done, so long as the pain or discomfort involved is minor, relying on the rule that we benefit someone in their absence. However, if the study will cause pain or discomfort and only others will benefit from the result of the study, but not the child, then the child's body may not be used. If there's a danger in the actual experiment, we're going to put this, whatever it's going to be, if the danger is small compared to the benefits that the subjects will gain from the experiment, it is permitted to do so. For every treatment there is some risk which is permitted when the expected benefit from the procedure is greater than the risks. However, if the risks are great, or if the benefit will be only for other patients, it is forbidden to conduct the study on a child, regardless of whether there is parental consent. Regardless. So now, what are we going to do here? Can't, right? So based on the text, do you think the Willowbrook study would be considered ethical by a rabbinical court? No. It is likely that rabbinical courts would not have permitted the second phase of the study. The children are caused discomfort by being deliberately infected with hepatitis. Even if the course of hepatitis is slightly milder when children are deliberately infected, they have a reasonable chance of not getting sick at all. Moreover, the reason the disease would be milder was because they gave them gamma globulin, not because they were infected with the hepatitis virus. While it is advantageous for children to be placed in a less crowded ward, yes, that would help the children out, it is hard to argue that this is a direct benefit of the study. What does that have to do with it? Put them in a clean ward even if they don't go through this experiment. Get them clean places to live. Thus, giving them this benefit does not offset the harm caused to them by deliberately infecting them. In summary, while in certain situations, people can volunteer, adults, to donate their own organs or participate in a medical experiment, we cannot conclude that they can do the same and make the decision for others as they make for themselves, and we're going to see why in a couple of minutes. Okay? So here, basically, it will be hard for the court, for a bezdin to say, okay, give the kid the thing because it causes him pain, and etc., 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 etc. Now, did someone wanted to ask a question? Charlotte?
Well, I was going to make the point that if they really were concerned about the children, putting them in a cleaner facility
would have been number one.
Using the money from the medical experiment on taking better care of them.
Right.
And if they were in the state's care, then that should have been
okay.
done.
Now, don't forget here, I just want to, before Dr. Wanda says something, I want to make clear, this is not here a halachic decision. We're not here arbiters, and we're our own bezdin. If you should ever, God forbid, find yourself in such a case, every single case is different. What he brought down the Willowbrook case was just to show you that unless there's direct benefit to the kid, right here, right now, that we can show that he can cause, why he caused them the pain and why he caused them the discomfort, we allow it. Otherwise, no. If another case came up, it's very unlikely that we can make a parallel line from the Willowbrook case to the Jerry case. It's two different worlds. One is here, one is there. Everyone is different. I just want to say that this is just for discussion purposes. We're here only a learning class. We're not here to make halachic decisions. If God forbid this happened, you'd call Dr. Abraham, who's still alive today, and you discuss it with him, and you'd go to competent rabbis and discuss it with them and keep going.
Everyone has a particular interest, a vested interest.
Oh, yeah.
And that we should be spending all of our resources on that. You look at the orphan diseases, for example, where it affects very, very few people, but there's a lot of very vocal people. Now, if you talk about spending resources, you've got that's involving taxes, sure. Resources. Something has got to give. Sure, we know that, put people in a clean environment. That makes sense. How do you maintain that?
Oh, no,
how do you keep it going? What are the resources financially that you're going to have to continue to use? Unfortunately, these sorts of things do enter into the equation.
No, of course, without question. Without question. You're absolutely correct, and I think that your statement really is.
I know about this study, and it was very well designed. Yes, we can look back with hindsight and we can say all kinds of things, but at the time that it was being done, it was done with the utmost of purest intentions to try to help these children.
No question about it. But your statement really is a broader statement overall medicine in general, how we deal now, because a whole class can be based just upon what you said about the finances that we're dealing with right now. I mean, we've often talked about the times when dialysis had first come out, and you were involved in those studies in dialysis, and we had to make decisions. You had to make decisions with a group of people who was actually going to live and who's not going to live, because it costs so much money. Okay, so a 22-year-old, we're going to give it to him, but a 78-year-old already had advanced.
In the days, it wasn't even that dramatic. It was the type of disease. Like, you were a 38-year-old person who had very bad hypertension. which caused your kidney disease, in all likelihood
you're not getting it. You're not getting it.
You didn't
No.
get it. These were horrible.
No, these were terrible decisions. Terrible decisions. And don't think that in the future it's not going to come more and more into play, because as you know, we're growing older. We have an older population. We're advancing in science, but our resources are not growing. Our resources are actually shrinking now. I mean, we're shrinking. So these type of issues, I would not want to sit. I'm saying it would be very hard to sit on an ethics panel in a hospital dealing with these questions, life and death questions. But if you could be this passionate, maybe it'll help. Brian?
Yeah, in the cases that the discussion at the end here, they talk about, if there's minimal risk to the child,
right,
pain, you can go ahead. But what if the benefits are great with the experiment for the child?
For the child itself.
For the child.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if you have, the child is looking at, a very slim chance of surviving an illness, and there's an experimental treatment, and we don't know. No, they could die from the treatment.
No question about it. That is no question. No question, go for it. I mean, that's because simply based upon the premise that it's beneficial to this kid. If you tell me, look, it's a high risk thing, your kid is not going to make it, but you know what? The result is going to benefit who knows how many. It's absolutely not. I'm not letting it. But if it's for this kid, and no matter how, look, we see this every day. Unfortunately, we see this every day. People are in the hospital. You go into any ward, when you go into an oncology ward, at the end of the day, people will say, well, we'll take any risk, right? I mean, if nothing else is working, we'll do whatever it takes to save the kid. Even if it's highly painful and highly risky, you want to save the kid's life.
The practical issue with that is you would never get to any good studies, because all studies start with phase 1 studies, which is what's a safe amount of and you start with too low of a dose, which doesn't do any good. Right. Kind of gradually increase it. And somebody has to do the phase 1 studies, and the chances of those benefiting that person are very small. It's not until you get to the phase 2 studies where you really have a chance of getting a benefit from something. But somebody's got to volunteer for the phase 1 study.
And those studies can't be done on adults?
They can't.
Well, there's
a childhood leukemia, you got to do the results.
I know it's
a childhood cancer, or
I know, but it's like the old statement. There was a rabbi that was once a very wealthy man, and he lost his fortune in one day. His whole business went down, and the students were discussing who's going to tell him. So they picked this prize student to go tell him, and the prize student comes into the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I have a question. In the 9th chapter of Tractate Brachas, it says you should thank God on the bad that befalls you, just like you thank Him for the good that befalls you." I can't understand that. He says, "What do you mean you don't understand that? God is good. He does even the bad. It looks good. Even the bad is really good." So he began to really question him and try drawing out from him really what he feels. And then until the guy said, "There's no such thing as bad in the world. Whatever happens is good. Only we perceive it as bad, but it's not really bad. So therefore, we bless God." Once already, after an hour of drawing this out of the rabbi who just said that there's nothing bad in the world, he tells him, "You know what, Rabbi, your business just went chapter 11. The guy fainted. So the students rushed in and woke him up, and they said, "Rabbi, for an hour you were pontificating and talking about how there's nothing bad in the world happened. So when I told you your business went into chapter 11, why did you faint?" He says, "That in the Talmud is talking about somebody else. When you told me about my own business, it's a different story. I am agreeing with you 100%. Those studies should be absolutely done, but not on my tuchas. But unfortunately, all of you bring up very, very valid, good points, legitimate points that would have to be studied. Here, we're just basically talking in general about the cost and benefit, one against the other. Why, the last point he made, he wants to just elaborate just a little bit more. Why are parents allowed to make a decision about themselves where they would not allowed to make on their children? And when we talk about children, we're just really talking about the mentally ill as well. I mean, children mentally ill is interchangeable. Why could I make a decision, I'm going to give a kidney, but I can't
volunteer my kid to give a kidney. So he writes, because it says in the Torah, that's why. What does it say in the Torah? You should love your fellow as yourself. Oh, so I'm willing to do it. Yeah. 1 second. Then he continues, Rabbi Kiva said, this is a great principle. Ben Azai said, this is the narrative of the generations of man. Elu Toldish Adam. On the day God created in the likeness of man. This is a greater principle. The telling of the story of mankind is a greater principle than even loving your friend as yourself. How so? Telling the story of the generations of man is a greater principle than actually loving your friend as yourself. How could that be? Loving your friend as yourself is a tremendous principle, going out of the way. Why? I'll tell you why. Because, and this is the way the Ravid explains it, because from the first verse, we only learn from loving your friend as yourself to love someone like yourself. V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. Love your friend as you love yourself. Thus, a person who has been shamed or cursed or is a victim of theft, who has been beaten, might think that it is permissible to let his friend be shamed, cursed, or beaten in the same way. Look, I wasn't, got over it. Someone embarrassed you, get over it. I was embarrassed. Someone beat you up, get over it. Because you were able to take it, so I only have my responsibilities to love you the way I love myself. I'm able to take it. You're able to take it. Therefore, the Torah says, in the likeness of God, He created him. Who are we shaming? Who are you cursing? One created in the image of God. That is why this verse is a greater principle than the first. For you to take it, if you're shamed and you take it, or if you're beaten and you can take it, or if you're cursed, you can take it. But to see somebody else, that I can't take. For me, I'll go on Mesiras Nefesh. I'll go self-sacrifice. I don't care. Someone beats me, fine, I'll turn the other cheek. Someone curses me out, but not for the other person, I won't. For the other person, I will stand up for the other person's right. So even though we might like them like ourselves doesn't mean that we, just like we take it, you take it. No. That's why the Torah says that if you want to go ahead and make a condition that you want to give the kidney, Shalom Aleichem, Tavi Aleichem Bracha. Go for it. We love you. We think you're a saint. You're the greatest guy. We applaud you. But not for your child. You're not going to make that decision. That has a completely different set of circumstances. And the last piece tonight is to talk about how we have to bring these people in. It's not enough just to set up an apitrupas. Okay, you know what? We fulfilled our obligation. We took a guardian. We gave a guardian to the mentally ill person. We feel good about ourselves. Now we go home. We eat supper. We go to sleep. Everything's I'm okay. No. There's one last thing that's called the value of inclusion. We need to bring these people into our lives, into our community. At the time when that God told Moses, let them make a sanctuary for me so I dwell among them, Moses says, who is capable of building a fitting sanctuary for God within which His divine presence may rest? God said, I do not request to them to build a sanctuary according to my ability, but only according to their ability. So these people, the shaita, that has a diminished mental capacity, is never asked to do any more than they're able to do. So if they're able to come to school and they're able to learn, Reb Moshe writes, you have to bring them to school. Because, someone who's a simple-minded person, we're not talking about someone that's going to disrupt a class, but a simple-minded person. Not a grace chacham. Maybe you ran into them people, they're simple-minded, a little bit, they're on the borderline, okay? What happens? What does he say over here? Come and see how the voice of God can forward to all according to their ability. The elderly heard their way, this guy heard their way, everybody heard the giving of the Torah their way. So now we know that the responsibility of a pesi is a simpleton, simple person, simple-minded person, low mental capacity, okay? Special needs children, low mental capacity, okay? Such a person we need to include in society. A pesi is someone who is weak-minded, cannot correctly understand things as they are. Look what Rabbi Moshe writes, accurately categorize what is observed. In adulthood, the mind of a pesi is similar to that of a child, sometimes like a 6-year-old, sometimes less.
They are certainly obligated in mitzvahs when they reach maturity. Boys at age 13, girls at age 12, there's an obligation for their parents to educate them in their youth. Once they're able to understand according to their ability, they should be taught the first chapter of the Shema until they know it by heart. The letters of the alphabet, their sounds. They should be taught about Hashem, who creates everything. Obviously, it is not possible to teach all this in one day. Rather, it should be taught slowly. When they attend a shul, the community should certainly welcome them pleasantly. Okay, look at that. When they attend the shul, the community should welcome them pleasantly. They should help them recite Amen, Kedusha. They should observe where they are able to, and they should kiss the Torah. Instead of being embarrassed of them, instead of putting them away and hiding them, embrace them, Rabbi says. Rabbi says, take these special children and bring them into our community. Bring them to shul. Educate them. Be proud of them. He was talking to the parents, right? Here we have now what we call a friendship circle. Chabad is organized what's called a friendship circle. We have teens that volunteer, that go every day to children with special needs their home. And they talk to them, and they play with them, and they have fun with them. That we've made about 100 bar mitzvahs already for these special needs kids. They wait the whole week for these teenagers to show up. They wait a whole week, and the parents cry when these teenagers come, because they know that someone is looking for their kid. That hour or 2 hours that they spend with the child in their home, this friendship circle is a lifeline for these children. I can't begin to tell you the story after story after story. Why? Because the parents, they may be ashamed. Look, they have 3 normal children and 1 guy is Pessy. So they're ashamed of them. So these people come in, these high school students, they take them out, they take them to the malls, take them skating. It's parties for them. It's an unbelievable thing. Ramesha writes, when he wrote in at Shuvah, when he wrote a responsa, every word was important to him. And he writes, to me, the key is when they attend a synagogue. Because you would say, hey, look, I don't have any children like this. Well, what is it? It doesn't affect me. It does affect you. When these kids come to shul, embrace them, welcome them, shake their hand, make them feel like another human being. And then they become adults. What do? No, don't go near that guy. He's not well. He's not well. He's not well. He's not well. Look what there is. This is what the Rebbe writes. We'll finish with the Rebbe writes. There is surely no need to emphasize, this is page 172, text 13. There is surely no need to emphasize at length that in all cases involving Jews, the specific Jewish needs must be taken into account. That is particularly true in the case, now he uses retarded children, but today it's not PC, right, to use the word. But the Rebbe, this was written, I don't know how many years ago the Rebbe wrote this, probably in the 60s, 79. In the case of special needs Jewish children, yet all too often disregarded, there's unfortunately a prevalent misconception that since you are dealing with special children, having both limited capacities, they should not be burdened with Jewish education on top of their general education, so as not to overtax them. Now, in midst, there's a little few notes over here that you don't have in your book, that they write over here that some researchers have shown that religion is harmful to these children, that religion itself may cause mental illness. That could be true. No, but the fact is, it's absolutely false. I mean, this is totally negated by what the Rebbe is writing over here, that to give children, why do you have to overburden them? In my opinion, this is a fallacious and detrimental attitude, especially in light of what has been said above about the need to avoid impressing a child with his handicap. Be it remembered that a child coming from a Jewish home probably has brothers and sisters, cousins and friends who receive a Jewish education and are exposed to Jewish observances. Even in the American society, where observant Jews are not the majority, there is always some measure of Jewish experience, Jewish angle in the children's background. Now therefore, if the special child sees or feels that he has been singled out and removed from that experience, or when he will eventually find out that he is Jewish yet deprived of his Jewish identity and heritage, it is very likely to cause irreparable damage to him. On the other hand,
if the child is involved in Jewish education and activities, and not in some general and peripheral way, but in a regular and tangible way, such as the actual performance of mitzvahs, customs, traditions, it will give him a sense of belonging and attachment, and a firm anchorage to hold on to, whether consciously or subconsciously. Eventually, even a subconscious feeling of inner security would pass into the conscious state, especially if the teacher will endeavor to cultivate and fortify this feeling. Humanity. This is simply, Yiddishkeit is equivalent to humanity, to taking these children and making them feel special. We have to treat these people with tremendous compassion. Not judgmental, but tremendous compassion. As Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who was traveling along in the last one, the Migdal, they saw a guy who was riding by, and he says, wow, look how ugly this guy is. How ugly you are. This is Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, one of the great sages. Everybody in your city is as ugly as you, he tells the guy. The guy says to him, what do you want from me? Go to the craftsman who made me and tell him, why did he make me? How ugly is this vessel which you have made? Once Rabbi Shimon realized that he had sinned, how could he have done that? He dismounted from the donkey, prostrated himself in front of him and said, I've misspoken to you, please forgive me. We cannot make the judgment of why God put certain people into certain bodies and souls into certain bodies, because if you think in Kabbalistic term, Kabbalah will tell you that every person is destined to come down to earth to fulfill the 613 commandments, and yet the same Torah that tells us to fulfill the 613 commandments exempt these people from fulfilling any commandments. They have no commandments to fulfill. So how does this jive with what we study in Kabbalah and Talmud and Medrash and Chumash and Tanakh and all of these things? That's not our business. Our business is not to be God's accountant. Our business is only to know that we need to live a passionate life and have compassion on other people. On yourself, you could be tough. You want to fast 7 days? Fast 7 days. But don't expect everybody else to do it. And especially someone who's handicapped. And especially someone who needs our help. And especially people that are suffering from a disease which society has already initially shunned them out. Said, we don't want to deal with you. We don't want to talk to you. We don't care about you. Hide. Go away. You make us feel uncomfortable. It's those very people that challenge us about our humanity. You see, to be a friend with a Nobel Prize winner, if the Nobel Prize winner walked through the door now, everybody would stand up and applaud him. Everybody would run over and embrace him. We'd shake his hand. We'd ask how he's feeling. Do you have supper? Do you do what? Yeah, of course, because he's a Nobel Prize winner. A respected guy. Good guy. Genius guy. Stephen Hawking would come through the door. We'd all run over. Oh, Dr. Hawking, was Herzog, was Machte. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Of course. Right? Those are the things, we wouldn't do it?
It's not a Nobel Prize winner.
No, I didn't say it's no Nobel Prize winner. But, but he would come in, respected scientist. All right? So now, these people come in. Someone who's a little odd. Mentally they're challenged. So that challenges our humanity. How do we deal with them? That's easy to turn away. And no one's going to call you a pisher. It's easy not to look at them. You make like you didn't see them. Like they don't exist. They're invisible. But think that this person was put there and came into your Dalet Amas, came into your 4 cubits, came into your presence. Do you know why? To challenge you about who you are. And that's what this class is about. This class is not to deal with whether you can experiment on them or not experiment on them but the whole class is about compassion. It's all about the idea of extending ourselves when it's not easy. Yeah, the Nobel Prize winner is easy. You don't have to be a certain nice guy to welcome a Nobel Prize winner into your home, right? Or a millionaire or a celebrity, right? It's the people, the other. That's the challenge to us. That's who we are and what we are, and that's why it's called medicine and morals. It's the morality of the medicine that we have to be concerned with. It's the compassion that the Torah told us, B'Tselem Elikim, that this person was created in the very same image of God as you were. Very same image of God as you were. It's uncomfortable to look at them. It's uncomfortable to speak to them. It's uncomfortable. You know what? That's what life's about. Life's about dealing with the uncomfortable situations in life. That's what morality and ethics is all about. If we're only dealing with the easy questions in life, we're angels. But since we're human beings, we deal with very, very difficult questions. Very tough questions. And everybody in a position of leadership makes tough decisions. I just saw today General Kelly, the Marine generals, the first general to lose a son in Iraq and Afghanistan. He had to bury his, I think, 21 or 22-year-old son. It's not easy to make that decision. Your father was a military guy. You joined the military. Then your father, who dedicated his life, has to stand in Arlington Cemetery to bury his son. It's easy, not easy decisions. Hard decisions in life that we have to make. Sometimes life and death decisions. Doctors, surgeons, other people. Presidents got to make tough decisions. We're not asked to make life and death decisions. We're asked to just follow the way of the Torah. That the Torah was placed in the world to make this a more pleasant place to live. And those are the key points I will run through. Judaism accords psychiatrists the same level of respect and trust as other medical professions. I'm not sure doctors do this. I'm just saying, I don't know if doctors respect psychiatrists as much as the other professions, but at least Judaism does. Jewish law requires the courts to appoint a guardian for those who are unable to represent their own interests and enact laws to protect the mentally incompetent person. It is highly questionable whether it's permitted to take bone marrow from a mentally incompetent person, even to save a life. Again, that was only because of the pain. One may allow mentally incapacitated people to undergo experimental treatment if the treatment is for their direct benefit. God only expects people to do what was in their capacity. People are responsible for religious obligations only according to their own pace and ability, and are exempt from those that are beyond their ability to fulfill. Engaging in spiritual activities can have positive effects on the well-being of people who are mentally impaired. In addition, partaking in communal religious programs creates a feeling of attachment and belonging, as both the Rebbe and Reb Moshe both wrote. One craftsman has made us all. We are all created in a divine image. You know what? Thursday, we're going to sit down and have Thanksgiving dinner. We're all going to be with whoever you're going to be, with family, friends, I don't care, whoever it's going to be. When we sit down, when we give thanks, one of the things that we started off this class was that we give thanks that we're healthy. And to remember that there are people, besides those who are physically sick, they didn't ask to be mentally ill. These are not people that ask for this. They're not proud of this. No one walks around with a badge of honor. Look at me, I'm a mentally ill person. Think of those people as well. Because the compassion that you give to them, I promise that this is true as anything else, will come back to you 100 times. Thank you very much. All right.